I remember when I was young that I had this this idea was absolutely absurd to me, that something can be born and then, or something can exist and then it can somehow not exist. And it seemed ridiculous to me that something could stop being, that something could just somehow, something that is, could stop ising. Because what could make something be in the first place? Like, what could make something exist? How is it possible that there is something that can exist? And it kind of freaked me out, because what if we didn't? What if we didn't exist? What if we weren't? What are the odds that there are? What are the odds that there is rather than isn't, you know? And it kind of freaked me out. Either it was absolutely certain to be that there is existence, or it was extremely unlikely and a very rare thing to happen, but it did. But then even that didn't make sense. You know, and this question for me was the furthest back I can think of anything to do with the nature of reality, and the foreshadowing of what ended up becoming the priority for my interest in what I would consider now to be the early years of my life, but then they would be the later years of my life. And I think that to me was extremely important, because it took me to see something very specific, right? That somehow, if there is existence, which there is, because it's obvious, is that it? Where we just suffer? Because to me, suffering was the inevitable consequence of being alive. It was something that was absolutely inevitable. And it took me to a place where I would rather die than continue to suffer. And it was this realization that kind of grew upon me. I think I first heard it from someone like Jim Carrey, and then I can't remember who else, but maybe Alan Watts too, that nothing in experience can make us happy. There's absolutely nothing. And I'd already been through my fair share of things in this experience at that time to make me realize that, you know, things don't really evolve from that. You know, that's life. I had a dose of life at a young age that made me realize the inevitable consequence of the ending of specific bodies. You know, my mum died when I was 10, and so, you know, for that to happen, it just, you know, I realized, oh, not only is my mum going to die, but everybody else. So I was like, so am I just going to fear everyone dying? And if I am, that's just one part. The rest of it is already challenging. There's already enough to suffer about in this life. And to me, there was no cure. Absolutely no cure. I mean, obviously there's no cure, because there's no curable solution. in the world of objective experience, in the world of 10 million thousand things. And no one will ever find that cure there, whether it's through spiritual practice, whether it's through books, whether it's through a teacher, whether it's through any type of thing that can be experienced in this world of grass and trees. And at that point, it really woke me up to just being open to the possibility that there could be something, a solution. Oh my God, there's this worm, and it looks absolutely pristine. It's got, the perfect shine, the perfect moisture. This is the type of worm I expect to see in this place. The sun. There's so much blue in the sky, right? But there's clouds just where the sun is. There's so much space in the sky today. But the sun is covered by just this 1% of clouds. Oh my gosh. Feed me. He's coming out. He heard me. See, the sun has ears, right? The sun knows when a man is in need. Come on, just a little bit more. Because it's warm, but not when it's cloudy. Where was I? So this, to me, was absolutely certain, and I think that eventually every person on the planet comes to the same conclusion, right? They have to. I don't see a possibility for one to not, unless something happens, an intermediary thing that happens spontaneously that just skips that part. But other than that, unless that happens, it just seems absolutely certain that eventually, somewhere down the line, we come to that conclusion that there's absolutely zero things to make us happy. And this, to me, was extremely depressing, but it was extremely motivating, because for me, it took me to desire the truth. It didn't take me to desire anything else. In a mental experiment, I could imagine all the possibilities of what I think could make me happy, and I just understood that, just like everything else that's made me happy, it has eventually stopped making me happy, and then I'd find something else. You can easily do an experiment to see that for the future tense, and just see from your own experience what has obviously not made me happy and what has obviously stopped making me happy, which is everything. And at this stage, it took me so deeply depressed, and there was a mixture of other things: the prolonged grieving of my mother, this kind of this jump to atheism, which just made me, disconnected from God, completely disconnected. And I just knew I wanted the truth or nothing else. And if I figure out that the truth is that life as we know it has no solution to be happy, no solution for happiness, I will literally just kill myself. It was that extreme. And to one degree, I almost did. But that's for another tale. So, what this did was brought me to a place, right, where I could understand that if there is something that will make me happy, it has to be experienced. It has to be understood. in my own experience. It can't be something that's given to me. And that anything that's given to me is given as a tool to then understand for myself. And that's essentially it for this video. I think that I just want to summarize as a tribute to people helping me realize this very simple but very, very, very important thing, is that there is absolutely nothing we can do in the world of grass and trees to make us happy. That includes teachers, spiritual books, spiritual practices. That includes the whole plethora of seeming cures. And what happens is that we put a label on the more sophisticated approaches, meditation practices, going to retreats, doing all these types of things, and we hold that as the means to an end, and hold the belief that money and cars and all that material stuff is something that doesn't work. But this stuff does. But this stuff doesn't work. So you guys go buy your cars, go buy your, find your relationships, because I'm celibate and I've mastered my sexual impulse. So, I just about breathe next to people, let alone kiss them. I'm joking. Don't be offended. But seriously, what happens is that we do things that seem to be spiritual, and these spiritual things that we seem to do, we believe are the means to an end, but in reality, they are absolutely no different from the money, the cars, the relationship, the substance, the attaining of a state of mind. It's all the same thing, because they're all stuff that you can do. The stuff that someone believes they do. Anything that someone believes they do is not going to do anything. It's the truth. It may detoxify the mind temporarily. It may detoxify the body temporarily. It may seem to work temporarily, but eventually we'll come to the same sense of lack, because none of these things are exploratory of our own experience. They don't do anything to explore the nature of our own experience. And their intention is to change or manipulate something. In other words, the intention is to do the change rather than experience the change. And anything with the intention of changing something will never change anything. It will perpetuate the thing or the one that we seem to want to change. It'll energize it, because it's resistance. It's resistance to the now. It's resistance to our already present experience. This seemingly unenlightened, unliberated, boring old experience that I must, and I'm so unadvanced that I need to do things in order to be more advanced, which is another way of saying to be more myself, I must do things to add to myself to be more that, when it just doesn't work. The reason it doesn't work is because none of these things can actually cause can actually cause anything to happen. They are like water trying to dehydrate itself. It's like taking a full bucket, scooping up water and pouring the same volume of water back inside that bucket. It just doesn't add anything. It seems like it does, but it doesn't. It's as ridiculous from this perspective as trying to hydrate yourself by drinking alcohol. So the question is, what is the solution? Well, there is a solution. The solution is to stop trying that approach. It's the approach we've always tried. It's the approach every single coach, every single being on this planet has attempted. And it hasn't worked. Why hasn't it worked? Because we keep trying to change things. So if we stop trying to change things, then we leave ourselves open to seeing what's already there. And this seeing what's already there is the first step in understanding the nature of our experience, the nature of ourself, which doesn't need anything to change. It's like the mirror of consciousness has been collecting dust particles all this time. And the dust particles are made of resistance. Every time we said no, a dust particle has appeared on the mirror of consciousness. Now, we've done this all our life. Eventually, we come to the point where there's so much dust on the mirror that we cannot see ourselves. And we try things to remove the dust. And the conventional means are taking a dusty old hand, trying to smudge the dust off the mirror. Now, this hand is resistance. So we reflect more resistance into the mirror and expect resistance to disappear, when what we're doing is adding more resistance to the mirror. We're adding more dust. So this approach is very, very simple. We simply explore the nature of the mirror and the nature of the dust. We explore the nature of our experience. We just explore what it's made of, what is actually happening. We see that the inherent nature of the mirror itself is free of all the dust. The mirror itself is dustless. The dust does nothing to the mirror. And in seeing that reflection, we see that we are changeless, that there is then nothing to be changed, that our essential being is already pristine, pure, unlimited, infinite, eternal. And nothing can taint that. No dust can taint that. In other words, what we already are is pure, infinite acceptance. Not because it's something that accepts, it's not an action. It's just something that is inherent with acceptance itself. Acceptance is just the word we give because we can't quite describe how something could be that. How something can just be all accepting. It's already accepted. It's the infinite acceptance. It's the yes to the universe, the yes for everything that's about to happen. That is what we are, which is why everything happens. The only reason everything happens is because what we are, the infinite mirror of consciousness, already says yes to it. Now, to see that that is our essential nature, to see that's what we are, what profound effects would that have on then the reflection of that mirror? What would that reflect into the mirror? It'd reflect the nature of being alive. It would reflect what really is. So that's just a summary of this path. And this path is a mastering. There's no masters of this path. Even the masters are still mastering. We are always learning, growing, understanding different ways to approach different situations. We're growing as a body and a mind, but that doesn't change that the infinite pure nature of what we are is in the foreground and the background of our experience. The body and the mind are imperfect, and as you can imagine, it's not an instantaneous thing to see that reflect, to see the mirror of pure consciousness, and for the body-mind to instantly straighten their posture to mirror exactly what that is, because I don't think that that's a thing that we do instantaneously. And I don't think there is any being, Ramana Maharshi, Maharaji, Atmananda Krishna Menon, my teacher Rupert. I don't think that there is any beings on this planet that have perfected the body and the mind. They're just like us. There's nothing special about any individual, but there is something special about everyone and everything, and it's what we share. It's that inherent, peaceful, infinite, pure being. That is absolutely perfect. And if we can stay close to that one, which we can, because we cannot move further away from it or to it, then we know we're in safe hands. Thank you for listening to this video, and I'm going to put my coat on and go to the sun.